So I'm going to leave this dump statement in here because that's going to cause an interesting situation. And then one thing that I do want to happen is, regardless of whether the form is submitted or not, whether we're successful or not, I still want to return back to the home page. Otherwise, we're going to end up with our form submitted and we've still got the form submission on the form, so you can still see the data or whatever. It just looks messy. So instead, we'll always redirect to the home page. And maybe what we could do is also add a quick flash message, such a tongue twister, and we'll just set that to be a type success, and we'll say your message was sent. Okay, so that's not actually going to show up by default. We do need to add something in to make that work. And as we're using Bootstrap, what I'm going to do is search for code review videos, flash, and then I've got a snippet on here which I use frequently. It's just this piece, and you can see where I would normally put it is under app resources, views, flash messages.html.twig. So under views, I'll create a new one and just paste all of that in there, and that's basically going to loop through any of the flash messages that we set and style them appropriately using Bootstrap. But we do need to include that, whether we include it inside the base, probably the best place for it. We'll just pop it above the body and see where what that looks like. In fact, that's probably going to look a bit bad, to be honest, because our body has got a little bit of styling on it. For the sake of this, we'll just pop it inside our container. We'll just pop it here, and we'll say include flash messages.html.twig. Now this won't actually work immediately until we go to our support controller. And as I mentioned in the previous video, implicitly our form will submit back to whatever route it renders on. So in this case, our form is going to try and submit back to the home page, and we've just ripped out all the logic that handles this form submission. So what we need to do now is tell our form, rather than submit back to the home page, we want to submit it to handle form submission. So create form takes 3 parameters or 3 arguments. The second one is some data. Well, we're not working with any data at the moment, but I will link to other videos where you would work with data. Typically in the sort of CRUD environment, when you're doing the update, you already have some data. You got some data back from your database or whatever, and maybe you want to repopulate the form with that data. This is where you would pass that in. Alternatively, sometimes you would see creating a new entity and then popping it as the second value here, even though it's an empty entity. And if you don't understand any of that, don't worry about it for the moment. Let's just pass in a null. And then the third argument, which you don't need to provide, is an array of options. And these are the options that we're going to pass to our form. And we're going to say, in this case, we want the form action to be this, generate URL, handle form submission. And what that's going to do is when we refresh this form, view the page, view the source, you can see now when we post back, it posts to the form submission rather than just the root or the slash, which it was doing the first time. So let's send this through. And now we get this nice flash message. But notice though, we no longer see our dump statement, and that's still there. So you've got this dump statement, but it's not sort of seeing that, which is a bit odd. But the reason it's not seeing that is because we're redirecting onwards. So we're processing this whole thing and then we redirect. And because we redirect, we've lost that dump information. Now, crucially, that dump information can be really useful. So we're in the dev environment. All we need to do is go under web profiler, intercept redirects, set this to true. And now if we do a@b.com or whatever, a@something.com, otherwise that won't work. And then send that through. This time we've intercepted the redirect, and there we go. There's our dump statement.